Okay, great. Thank you for that reminder. All right, and so this evening we are going to be looking at health and wellness. And when I speak about health, I speak about health in a broader context to what we are familiar or how we've been taught to think about it. And I do understand from my perspective, as I will share with you, that health really is the foundation for living a fulfilled life. And we all are going to go through life, we're going to age, and one day the finish line approaches and we all get to the end one day. But we want to know that we have lived a fulfilled life. That life was filled with meaning, value, purpose, and passion. And it can be that way for each and every one of us. One of the things that get in the way is what we call stress. And the world we live in today, people are talking about stressful lives and stressful living and how the world is becoming a more stressful place. But I have a different perspective on that. But what we call stress is the leading cause of what we call disease or disease. And that's why I focus on the context of health. And we're going to be talking about the future of optimal wellness and the secret to thriving and not just surviving. That's what we're going to cover and what we're going to talk about this evening. I want to begin with the World Health Organization's definition of health, which is an appropriate place to start. And it says that health is a state of complete physical, mental, spiritual, social, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. I inserted the word spiritual because without that, it's really not a complete state. But health is a complete state. And what I want to point out, first of all, as we consider health, this is a pretty good and complete definition of what health really is. But I want to highlight that it is a state of being and not a feeling or how the body functions alone, but it really is a state that is complete. And if there's anything that you want to highlight or stay focused on or bring to the forefront throughout the presentation, is that health is a state of being. And that state is one that is complete and complete in our physical, mental, spiritual, and social well being, and not the absence of disease or infirmity. If we truly want to live a healthy life, and we'll see what constitutes that, we have to start to think of health as the entirety of every aspect of our living. And it's not a matter of whether we feel well or feel sick or not, because we have been taught to think about health in such a narrow way that once we don't feel sick, we think that we're healthy. And we need to move beyond that if we are going to truly live and experience a high quality of life and a high standard of living where we can live life with purpose and passion and meaning, the things that we all desire. We need to be able to look at health in this holistic context. And so as we consider health, cultivating health is perhaps the most important thing that we can do, because investing in our health is nothing more important, because health, everything in our life, every aspect of our life stands on what we call health. And so when we think about our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual dimensions of our life, and as it relates to the social framework or being socially connected, and here I have these 6 elements and being financially empowered so that we can have a quality of life and a standard of living that we so desire, then the wholeness of health is what we need to always be focusing on. Now, I want to just say just a little bit about this is because to be physically strong, mentally clear, have mental clarity, to be emotionally stable and spiritually aligned, this is all to do with our physical, psychological, and our spiritual well-being. This is us. This is our human makeup. But what the key for this being in balance and in harmony, and for us to function at our best, it has to be done in such a way that our social connections are also in alignment and harmonious. In fact, I want to suggest to us that our social interactions, our relationships, as we interact with life and other people in our day-to-day living, that is the bridge, or that is the catalyst that will determine how well our lives are aligned or not. And based on that, it is also going to determine how financially empowered we are. Someone asked me recently, how does financial fit into the whole model of health? Well, it's mutually supportive to our life because the social framework of life is completely supported by economics. The whole social fabric of life that we live and move in and interact in, the whole fabric of that is supported by economics. And that's very important for us to consider because how well the quality of our life and standard of living may be has everything to do with how we fit in to the social framework and how financially empowered we are. Now, I want to say this, the financial empowerment, although we may not quite capture the full rudiments of it right now, has everything to do with how we interact with each other socially. So when we look into the world today and people say, well, look at the moral fabric of society is eroding, look at how much social polarizations, how much conflict they have, look at the degradation of the family unit. And there are lots of things regarding our social interactions with one another, be it from the home to the work and into the social framework. But what that being what it is has everything to do with how physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually well we are. And the goal is if we want to have the best relationships and to be able to fit into the social framework of life where we can maximize and do our best to be financially empowered, that we could have a full and complete life, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, that is what we have to get right. Our social interactions is the catalyst that helps us to get that right. And I hope you're going to be able to see that. But cultivating health, because it deals with every aspect of our life, is the most important investment that we can make in our lives today. So true health is the full expression of our life, and it's rooted in a very clear awareness of who we are. So when we say a state of being, that health is a state of being, a state of being speaks about how we are based on who we are. And so our awareness of ourself or our identity, what our identity is rooted in who we are or who we think we are, that true health is a full expression of life that's rooted in a clear awareness of who we are, of that sense of identity. That's really important. And that really is going to be the central key because our state of being, our awareness of self, that's going to define our state of being, is what's going to determine if this model is going to be a working model or it's going to be a confusing or a struggling model or a free-flowing model that gives growth, development, expansion, and the abundance in life that we're all looking for. But because of this narrow understanding that health is just about how the body feels and how the body functions, that narrow context of health has led us to this global pandemic that the whole world is facing today. The World Health Organization calls it the global burden of disease because it's affecting the entire planet. So you can basically say that we have a sick planet. And in terms of economics or economy that you and I are living in, everybody's chasing life, trying to make better in their lives. And what they're chasing after more than anything else is how to have more money so that we can make life better. And as a result, we lose our physical wellness to lifestyle diseases, our style of living based on our state of being, because we don't fully understand the full picture We have not been given the full picture of what health is. But we are living in an economy today that is struggling, and everybody inside that economic framework in the social fabric of life, most of us are struggling with life. Most of us are chasing and fighting life. And most of us, based on the statistics, end up with what we call lifestyle disease. 60% of us are that end up with it. It's the number one cause of death on the planet. The number, more than wars, violence, put together, lifestyle disease has the highest mortality rate of anything on the planet. 50 million people a year. A few years ago, we had a global pandemic, the COVID pandemic, that shook the world and had people living in fear. In the 2 years of that pandemic, it only killed 20 million people. It took 20 million lives. Here it is, we have a pandemic that's taken 50 million every single year, and we don't think anything of it. And most of us are going to end up leaving this planet like that, having spent the last 20 or 30 years suffering with a declining quality of life because of this. And it's because we are not clear on understanding that health is a complete state of being that encompasses every aspect of our lives. We are seeing mental health disorders moving to the forefront now, and it's the leading cause of disability worldwide. Well, what I want to highlight here is that what develops in our body as chronic disease is not the problem. It's just an outcome. And when we get to really understand this, we will get to see that this does not have to be our future. This does not have to be a reality of our life. It's interesting that we call it lifestyle diseases, but in approaching how we deal with it, we don't try to adjust our style of living. Instead, we have an approach to sickness and disease that has been established by the medical establishment to where 70% of an increase in prescription drugs, which is the general way how it is dealt with, is the third leading cause of death on the planet. It's called iatrogenic disease. 70% increase, and that was 2010, so it's a lot more now. But the third leading cause of this iatrogenic disease, if you want, you can look it up. It simply means death that's caused by medical treatments, most of which is the use of prescription drugs. But there are other things involved. But the third leading cause of death on our planet today is medical treatments. So I'm not knocking that, because medical treatments, we need it because it can save our lives, but it will not help us to live healthy. So we need to broaden our mindset outside of that. Health is about how my body feels and functions, and if I'm not sick, it means I'm healthy. That's not the case, because if other areas of our lives are out of balance, then I promise you, and I promise all of us, we're on that way that it's only going to be a matter of time before a lifestyle disease will show up. And we are likely to think, well, I'm just getting on in age, and so this is a normal part of life. If that is the narrowness of our thinking, then I can pretty much also bet that as we go through life, chasing life, trying to get a better quality of life, that is going to be equally as difficult to achieve. And so life is not meant to be a struggle. Life is meant to be a flow, not a struggle. We are all meant to reign in life. We are all meant to live abundantly. We are all meant to live with ease, not dis-ease. That is our birthright. And we are built with the capacity to that. So when I inserted the word spiritual in there, I'm not introducing it so much as a religious concept, although that pertains, but I'm talking about, so when I say our spiritual makeup, it's a real part of our human makeup that is functional. It helps us to be able to function in a way that is beyond, it takes us beyond the temporal realm. It connects us to a paradigm of reality that is beyond what is observable. So, for example, when we think about our spiritual nature, and I'm just going to say this now, a lot of people are not clear when we talk about that. But it's simple things like when we look at a sunrise or a sunset and we feel that sense of awe, we might have been in a reflective moment and we see the sunset and we feel this sense of awe and this stillness of peace fills up inside of us. Or if we see someone that's in a dire need of help or an elderly person that needs help with something and we feel moved to go and help them without even thinking about it. Or um, you look at a movie or you see something happening, somebody helping another person, and you're moved with it, and you get emotional, maybe even tears come. That is our spiritual essence that's coming through. It's a very real part of us, but our spiritual aspect of life is what connects us to a dimension of reality that transcends the temporal world that is observable to us. It's a way that we can tap into the deeper truths of life. It's a very real functional parts of us that helps us to live beyond the normal. And so we need to be able to get back in touch with that as we consider health and the wholeness of health. It's not just about our physical body, our mental and emotional or psychological lives, it's our spiritual lives, and it's all together as one whole complete life. And so when we understand that, we can live free of these statistics here. But when disease develops inside of our bodies, we need to understand it's an outcome of a problem and not the problem. So we need to move beyond thinking about recovering from illness or restoring our health. We have to now move beyond focusing on the symptoms that we have attached a name to. We have to move beyond that. And so as we look in to how we can do this, I want to consider this quote from Thomas Edison, who said that the doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. I want to highlight will give no medicine, because if you can even conceive of a future or of a time where illnesses, chronic lifestyle disease is being treated without any medicine, that's hard to conceive that, because we are so ingrained in our thinking of that you need to take a pill, you need to take something to fix the symptoms, that it's hard to see that how could it even be done without a medicine. But that we are in this time already. We are already in that future. And the cause and the prevention of disease is what we need to become clearer on. And so that's what we are going to be looking at, the cause, and therefore how we can prevent. And within that equation is how we can live disease-free. I also want to highlight that the same Edison, we all know that he created what we know today as the light bulb. That was a technology that he introduced to the world back in the 1800s. And even though it was a significant paradigm shift, it was perceived as just another option for lighting up spaces. And it took more than a generation for people to culturally accept that new paradigm shift. I'm saying that to also say this. When we think about health and the wholeness of health and how we approach it in terms of we can do it without medicine, that is going to take probably more than a generation. It's going to take generations for that to be culturally accepted. So what I'm telling you now, even though it may resonate with you, and it's all validated by science today, culturally, people are still going to say that if I don't feel well, I'm going to need to take something to fix it. I need something external to do it. So I want us to know that where we are, when we understand health as it pertains to the wholeness of our lives, every aspect of our being, we can certainly live a disease-free life. We can optimize our well-being, and we can live, and if we do get sick, there are ways that it could happen without medicine. So I'm also going to be talking about later on a technology that we need that has come into the world today. Very simple technology that helps us, like all other medical technology has done in the past, like technology has helped us to be better at detecting, at monitoring, at dealing with issues. Well, Technology has served us well when it comes to health and healing, but I want to talk to you about a technology that fits in with this paradigm of wholeness of health. It has no medicines. It is no pills, no powders, no liquids. There is no equipment involved. There is no external frequencies. There's no substances. There's no ingredients. There's no medicine to this technology, but yet it works better than any medicine that's out there. That may sound hard to hear. Why? Because if we understand the human system and how it is that we cannot need medicine, we will understand what I'm saying. So we'll get to that. The reason why healing without medicine is possible is because healing is really by design. It is a built-in mechanism to the human design. In medicine, we call it innate healing, and it is the creative flow of life that's woven into the human design. It's part and parcel of who we are. What they call spontaneous healing, which is healing from incurable diseases and terminal conditions, spontaneous healing arises when when that healing capacity becomes fully awakened. And when that is fully awakened, it happens when the whole harmony of our being is in balance. Spirit, soul, and body. When we, as a whole human being, is in harmony, that's where spontaneous healing is. This is all validated in the medical literature. Medical literature around the world validates that we are self-healing. Inside the human makeup, there is a power, there's a force of life within us that heals any and everything that's within that goes wrong inside of our bodies. It is what sustains us, it's what maintains us. It is what heals the cut when we get it. It's what mends the bone if we break a bone. It is what makes our hair grow back if we cut it. It is that very source of life. And that is spirit. Spirit is the aliveness that gives us animation and movement, that gives us the consciousness and awareness to live. That is the spiritual essence of our being. When that could become the defining factor by which runs and guides our life, this creative flow flows freely. So we know that our body can heal itself. Medicine says up to a point, even though the literature shows that there are lots of cases that are documented where people who are diagnosed with terminal conditions and they spontaneous, meaning there's no medical treatment that was given, but they recovered from it. People that had tumors in their brain and tumors in their bodies and stage 4 cancers and conditions that were medically incurable, and they completely overcame them. Now, even though that's documented, we don't pay attention to the fact that this is the innate, we don't focus on this in medicine. In my 25 years of clinical practice and my interaction into the world of healthcare, this is looked at as a negative and not a positive. And that's part of our narrow-mindedness in terms of understanding health. This power resides within us. You would have seen there are also documented stories that tap into this power that we all have, where you can go online and you can research it, where a car falls on a child and the parent rushes and just picks up the car and in that moment had superhuman strength. Or you would have seen all the examples where you can hypnotize someone and you hypnotize a person, and while they're in that hypnotic state, you can tell them, pick up this pen is 2,000 pounds. I need you to try and move it. And the person will struggle and sweat and they'll never be able to move it simply because they believe that this pen is 2,000 pounds. Or they will convince them that the tip of this pen is red hot with fire, and they'll just touch their skin and the skin will get burnt by it. What's that saying? It's all within its belief. It is the power of the mind. The power of our mind. If we knew that this thing that we possess, call our mind, and the power that it has, we have, and if we understood or got even more of a glimpse of it, we would learn to harness this. we will begin to prioritize that. We cannot let our minds be like a wild horse that's just unbridled. We would want to tame it and have control over it, because it not just determines the health of the body, it determines the quality of our life, period. This is what resides within us. This is where a lot of healing in the future is going to be, when we come to recognize who we truly are and we understand returning back to the wholeness of life. This is not just how your body feels, functions, and living free of disease. This is going to impact our entire life. But it is well known throughout psychoneuroimmunology, epigenetics, quantum physics, quantum biology, even through spirituality, it's known that human beings possess a capacity. And this capacity is to stay well, to heal from anything, and to live at a level of life whatsoever we desire. We can experience that in our lives if we can learn to harness this. And if you take away anything, take that away with you, is that within each of us is the capacity to live the life that we so desire. But we have to bring that into context of understanding, because the capacity resides within us. This is not something we have to go and look for, something we have to develop, something we have to try and, it already exists. It's just that we are not aware of it. And anything that we're not aware of simply does not exist. We have to become more aware of it and then learn to cultivate it. As we cultivate the wholeness of health, and we will see miraculous things happen in our lives, not just with our bodies, but with our entire life. So this is just a little model to help us to gain a little bit more perspective and understanding about it, that we human beings as three-dimensional body, soul, spirit, it's the difference between being and doing. We are born into a world where we are enculturated to emphasize doing over being. And that happens from the time we are born into this world. But if we accept that that our spiritual well-being, remember, this is a very functional part of our human makeup. This is where clarity of purpose and the power of potential comes from. This is where our true passion arises. This is where our capacity to reign in life resides. This is not, divorce any religious thought from this. Just think of it as a functional part of the human design, that it is what enlivens us, but it's what has the capacity within us to make our lives into whatever. In this case, we're talking about recovering from any illness, preventing any illness, and living optimally in terms of having our bodies function at the best without disease. This is what. So when the creative order of life, it flows from spirit, soul to body, when mind and heart, when our soul is defined by the qualities of spirit, our body will always be healthy. There will always be homeostasis. There will always be balance. Once it flows freely from spirit, soul to body. Our soul, which is our sense of identity, this is our mind, thoughts, heart, emotions, and our will, choices. This is where we navigate life. This is the creative center of our life. This is where we will create whatever our life is right now. I want you to know it's being created right here. Nothing is happening by chance. It's being created right here. Now, if our soul, our sense of identity, our sense of awareness of who we are is governed and defined by spirit, what will be expressed or reflected in the body is wholeness and harmony. If, however, our soul, our mind, and our emotions, when this is defined of anything else that's contrary to our spiritual nature, it is going to create tension right here in the soul. You see, let me just say this. When I say our spiritual well-being, I'm talking about essentially our life being defined by love and truth, because the essence of spirit is love as a quality, not as a sentiment. or an emotion. It will express as that through the soul, but as a very essence or a frequency that is a creative potential. Love is the creative force of all life that unifies all life. It expresses as a sentiment and an emotion when it passes through the soul. But if our sense of identity is defined by love, if our thoughts and emotions is guided by truth, what will express in our body is wholeness. What will express into our outer environment is a good quality of life. But if it is not, then we're going to create a tension in here. Why? Because we're going against the natural flow. What would do that? What would do that is the very world that we've been born into, we have been taught from a very young age to abandon or not even recognize our true sense of being. Our state of being is not defined by spirit. Our state of being is defined by our physical nature. Why? Because we have been taught from a very early age to invert the natural flow, to go from inside out to outside in. When our sense of being and our sense of identity is defined by our physical nature, when our self-awareness is tethered to our sensory perceptions, our physical senses, this creates a tension right here in your soul because it's going against the natural flow of life. So this is where doing replaces being. This is where our life is defined and our sense of identity is gained by outer reality, achievements, performance, appearance. We need to be validated by people. We need to fit in. From a very early age, we are taught to give up our authenticity of our true essence, to fit in to the mold of this world, to fit in to the commonplace of society. And in doing that, in the very thing of giving up or inadvertently abandoning the true essence of our being, we begin to live by qualities that come from external societal conditioning, where we adopt a different identity. It's an egocentric identity. We adopt a different identity, and to us, this is our reality. This is the only reality we know. So even talking about this now, it is so foreign because our spiritual essence of being, our spiritual nature, it becomes obscured. We may accept it to be so intellectually, but experientially, it is foreign to most people because it's really obscured. There are only these moments where it breaks through, when we have moments of compassion, where we have moments where we are moved deep in our soul, where we may be in a time of meditation or prayer, and all the noise of life dissolves into, and this overflowing of peace comes up inside of us, and this gratitude and love. That's all our spiritual essence. We're supposed to be living. That's supposed to be what guides our life. But when life flows from the outside in, when it's opposed in the natural flow, life will always be a struggle. Why? Because it's defined by doing, no longer by being. So we have to do more, do more. We have to try and work hard to make things work. When life flows from the inside out, it flows effortlessly. It takes a whole lot less effort to get a whole lot more done. When it flows from the outside in, it takes more and more and more efforts even to get a little bit done. Life becomes a struggle. But internally, there's this conflict within us. We have this conflict. And this conflict, when physical nature defines our identity, our spiritual nature is blocked. It's obscured. And that resistance creates what we call stress. That is the true source of stress, not the world, not what's going on in society, not other people. And that stress is what leads to a dis-ease that breaks this body down into all kinds of sickness that has become a global pandemic. Why is it such a global pandemic? Because the majority of the population on this planet live this way. We live where our sense of identity, our sense of worth and value is governed by our physical essence. That's why we live in ways where we judge people by appearance. We are offended when people say things that we don't like, because our whole sense of well-being is governed by physical nature. When it's by the spiritual nature, we're not even bothered by when somebody says something about us. We understand why people are the way they are, so we don't have any judgment. Life is a completely different paradigm when it flows from the inside out. And so that, in essence, is where we're at. This stress, the inner tension that's in our soul, understand that stress is an inner tension within us. When we feel stress, it's not outside. We feel stress on the inside. In fact, we experience life, period, on the inside. And so stress is that inner tension that arises when cultural and societal conditioning conflicts with our true essence of being. We have a fractured way of living. It's a split way of living. Sometimes we touch our inner essence, but what rules our life that makes life a difficult and struggle, which manifests as illness in the body and struggle in life, is because our state of being, that's our focus, our state of being is being defined in a very inverted way. And so when we learn to correct this and live with, not only do we see what they call spontaneous healing, but we see a quality of life beginning to emerge. Life begins to work for us on all kind of levels. They may call it synchronicities, they may call it favor, they may call it grace, but life begins to work when we flow with the natural order, the creative order of life. And so this is what we want to be able to learn to do. This is the foundation, the fundamentals. What we can get here is that this is a whole a lot of rudiments and principles and teachings that's built into this. I'm just giving you the overview of the concept of how it is we're ending up here in this thing called sickness and disease. Stress is the #1 cause of disease and dysfunction on the planet. And all the authorities that's in the space of healthcare, they all say that. The World Health Organization and other institutions says that 60 to 80% of people in modern societies live in a chronic and recurring state of stress. Most people live like this. Up to 90% of doctor visits are stress related. Stress is the basic cause of 75 to 90% of all human illness and disease. Over 90% of disease is caused by stress, thoughts, and beliefs. And you can look into some of these things on your own. Chronic stress increases the odds of developing mild cognitive impairment by 87% and Alzheimer's disease by 145%. These are very real statistics. It's no wonder that Alzheimer's is beginning to overtake cancer. Now, when it comes to stress, I can't tell you, this word is on the lips of people's mouths everywhere, every day. Stressful, life is stressful. Life is not stressful. Our state of being accommodates that. It's not life. What's happening outside, the work that we do, the hours that we work, the money that we don't have enough of, the relationships that we find that are conflicting, the traffic that we have to deal with, the bills that we have to pay, none of that is a stress. That's just life happening, and it's happening by law, not by chance. That's just life happening. How we respond to that is all that we call stress, is all because of this fractured way that we have learned to live, this divided way that we have learned to live, that to us it is normal. But if you would hear what I'm saying, this is that the very root, at the foundation of why we're struggling with life. Sickness and disease is just one manifestation of it. But the relationship issues that we have, the struggles in life that we have, the hardships with money that we have, is all part of the same problem. And I hope that's coming through to you. This is what it looks like on the outside. On the external part of life, this is what it looks like. It's saying, I was going to, but then life got in the way. Is that familiar? I've been meaning to, I just haven't had the time. Something always comes up. It is having intentions, but not following through. It is wanting better, but not doing better. It is knowing what we ought to do, but always not prioritizing. And we come up with things that there's just so much going on. You understand, life, we are not making life work because we're not sure how to make life work. I'll get to it when things settle down. I wanted to, I just got caught up. Oh, I just didn't have the energy. I'm talking about living effectively and executing life effectively, flowing with life as opposed to struggling with life. This is kind of what it looks like on the outside. This is what it looks like on the inside. These are the hidden roots of what we call stress. Stress emanates because this state of being, this is the state of being that exists because it's being defined by physical senses as opposed to our spiritual qualities. It is secretly experiencing life one way, but openly pretending that life is another way. It is projecting a positive self image, yet still we're worried and concerned about what other people think about us. Fractured. It's saying that we value the truth, yet not be honest with ourselves and others. It's wanting to be significant while defining ourselves by past struggles. It's desiring the inner confidence, yet wanting others to still affirm and validate our value. It is wanting to be healthy, yet choosing habits that contradict wellness. These are things that this is how most of us are living every day, in one way or the other, in some form. It's when there are inconsistencies between our intentions and our actions. It's thinking or feeling one way, but yet saying or doing another. It's when our outer circumstances define our inner well being. That's when life is defined from the outside in. It is when things are not going good on the outside, or when things are not ideal in my life, I feel stressed and I put it on the outside. But if my well-being, if my sense of when I feel good, when I feel euphoric, when I feel joy and peace, and when life is wonderful, if that is based on what's happening in my external reality, then my sense of identity is defined wrongly. One thing will happen. Life will always be an upstream paddle. Life will always be an uphill climb. And along the way, apart from struggling and not pursuing purpose, passion, and meaning, we are going to end up with this thing called disease. That's just one outcome of the struggle. If we turn this around, yes, our bodies are going to improve, but our lives will also improve. So stress doesn't come from the circumstances that life presents, but from how we perceive and react to them, shaped by the internal framework of mindsets rooted in an unstable sense of self. So we have to understand that life is always perceived through the lens of our inner state. That's why our state of being is so important. When thoughts, emotions, words, and actions align as one seamless frequency, when there is no distinction between what we think and what we do, or what we say, how we feel and what we do, when it's all one and the same, then living is authentic. But we get to this place because we give up authenticity because we want to fit in. Because there is a fear within us. Once we begin to define our lives from the outside in, we are going to see life in duality. It's always going to be us or them. It's always going to be a winner or a loser. It's always going to be comparison. There's always going to be competition. There's always going to be the past and the future, but hardly ever the present. Life is defined that way because we have abandoned our authentic self, which is really the true essence of being is love, peace, truth, and everything that flows from that. But when we can return back to having our thoughts, emotions, words, and actions align as a seamless whole, as one and the same thing, peace, our true essence of being, which is defined by peace, the opposite of stress, that comes through. That's the end of stress. And this is where healing, this is in essence what spontaneous healing is. You do your research on that. If you have an interest, you'll see that all the records that have been accumulated over the years of tens of thousands of cases of people who experience spontaneous healing, it's always a returning back to recognizing that there's more to them and looking at the true essence of their being. It brings, and the body just responds to it. But more than that, life responds to it. How does this translate into disease? This fractured way of living? When we think one way, we speak another way, we feel one way, we do another thing. When there's this, fracture in our sense of being because our sense of worth and value is being defined externally rather than internally. How does that translate into disease? The inner and the outer, the sense of identity by physical nature or spiritual nature. This is how it translates. It translates because of the central nervous system, which is how we experience life. There's no experience to life without the central nervous system. The central nervous system is our brain and the entire network of nerves that run through every area of our body. That's the central nervous system. Excuse me. And that is the bridge between our inner and outer life, our invisible life that comes from inside, and our outer life, our physical nature, and beyond. This is the bridge of how we are experiencing this journey we call life. The central nervous system, it extends into two branches of the autonomic nervous system. The central nervous system extends into what they call the autonomic nervous system, and it controls every function in the body, and it has two branches to it. The first one is called sympathetic nervous system. You could remember this. This one deals with stress. S for sympathetic, S for stress. This is the one that deals with stress response. Based on research, 60 to 80% of human beings live with the sympathetic nervous system always dominating our well-being. Because when this side of the autonomic nervous system is activated, they call it the fight and flight response, and it's activated through chronic stress, it leads to every type of lifestyle disease that we know. This is all in the medical literature. It's all medically validated. In the real world of the medical establishment, it's not addressed this way because the approach is all about symptom control and managing conditions and not restoring health because of our narrow perception of it. Chronic stress, as it's recorded in the medical literature, when there is chronic ongoing stress, when the sympathetic nervous system is activated, our immune system is going to decline in its function. Our cortisol, our adrenaline, our adrenal glands are going to get suppressed. All the functions begin to change. Oxidation and systemic inflammation, which are the root of lifestyle diseases, that overtakes. And it doesn't happen overnight. It is a gradual increase and layering and layers and layers of it pile up over time as the body always tries to maintain its balance as long as we're constantly going through this stress response, which is how most of us are living. Our body becomes so acculturated to this stress response that we don't even recognize that we are in a continuous stress response. Even if we're sitting down, so-called relaxing with friends and we are still subconsciously, it is still activated. It almost never turns off. Even in our sleep, the sympathetic nervous system for many people is still running. And so think of it this way. Take a pen or a pencil and just tap your finger with it. It's a very light thing. You just tap it. You don't feel anything much. You're not hitting your finger hard enough to hurt it. Just tap it. Just tap it. But if you kept tapping it and a whole week passed and you just tap, by then it's now hurting. After a month, you've damaged the vessels inside, your finger is now swollen, and it started out with a light tap. Once this sympathetic nervous system stays on, and we run life like this, it's inevitable, it's going to lead us to lifestyle diseases. Now, I'm just simplifying this, but there's a whole cascade of events that take place once this system is dominant in our lives. That's the first branch. The second branch is the parasympathetic nervous system. And you can remember this one because P is for peace, which is the opposite of stress. And the parasympathetic system deals with healing and recovery. When this is turned on, the immune system activates. Immunoglobulin A, IgA, which is what heals and repairs and turns the immune system and jacks it up to that elevates. Cellular repair, our biological systems become more, a whole symphony of balance starts happening and our body starts naturally repairing itself. When there is spontaneous healing, where people recover from life-threatening and terminal illnesses, this system becomes highly dominant. But what's making it so is a state of being, not medicine, but a state of being. It's what's doing it. I hope we're getting that. This happens, the parasympathetic system, this is where our body goes into rest and restoration. And this happens when peace instead of stress is what's dominant in our lives. We can measure this through brainwave activities. The whole regulatory state of the central nervous system, of the autonomic nervous system, the whole regulatory state is observed through brainwave activity. This is important for us because this helps us now to understand how we can overcome this. You see, brainwave activities are frequencies, are the electrical activity of the brain, which are measured in hertz or frequencies. But we have to also understand that every thought and every emotion, they're also frequencies. When the frequencies are harmonious and consistent with peace, balance, harmony, coordination, so the parasympathetic system becomes dominant. When, on the other side, the frequencies that are released by thoughts and emotions are on the negative side, the brainwave activity activates the sympathetic system. And that's really how it works, state of being. When our inner state is defined by negative thoughts and emotions, when we live with fear and worry and anxiety and guilt and resentment, and these things govern our lives, conscious or subconscious, the brainwave activity shifts the body into sympathetic dominance. The opposite is true. When our inner state of harmony is defined by positive thoughts and emotions, the brainwave activity shifts the body into parasympathetic dominance. Our brainwave, the frequencies that our brains are activating, which is flowing through to all biological systems, the brain being the central command of everything in our bodies, how that shifts is all has to do with our state of being. And so disease doesn't happen to us, it really evolves through us. And that's the real, so if we want to get rid of it, the same thing is true. It's true. If we can just reverse what got us there, the opposite begins to happen. It begins to go away. Now, we can use external remedies and we all to support the process, but understand at the root of it, it's a battle between this survival mechanism, which is how we live. Everybody, we're living in survival mode all the time with our sympathetic dominance. But we go between the two, but we live mostly in survival mode, and we have very few moments of the restoration mode. We just want to flip that around, and flipping that around really is the question of, is your sense of identity, your sense of well-being, is it defined by your authentic nature, or is it the adopted identity from how the world has conditioned us to think of ourselves because we want to be able to fit into the commonplace of the fabric of society, and we abandon ourselves just the fear of not being accepted and being rejected and a whole bunch of other things like that. This is the very roots of what true health. So if we want to unlock that natural flow of healing, which extends into our whole life, we have to learn how to harmonize our thoughts, emotions, words, and actions to be one and the same, one frequency. This dissolves the inner conflict. This is learning to live from a new state of being. And that takes time, that takes effort, it takes practice, it takes renewing of the mind, it takes changing our conscious awareness, our perceptions, our beliefs about things. It's inner work that has to be done. But when that inner conflict dissolves, when there's the less and less inner conflict we have, and the more authentic we live, the more harmonious our body functions, the more harmony the brainwave activity will be, which shifts our body into that healing So it restores that natural harmony between mind and body, which elevates the parasympathetic system, and our body goes into that healing. But let me just continue to say again, the very dynamics and rudiments that we have to engage for this change, our relationships begin to improve. The quality of life begins to change. And things start happening in our experience to make life work better, that we just feel like life just works for us now. But because we are now aligning with the right creative order and flow of how life is designed to work. And so when our brainwave activity can be reset back to harmony and balance, and we can do that, all the research shows that getting into things like meditation and deep moments of prayerfulness and cultivating our minds by whether we read scriptures, whether we read material to help to renew our thinking patterns, when we start to adjust our values and our beliefs, as we do that, as we engage that process, we are shifting brainwave activity and we are shifting functions of the body. But here's a question that I ask, and this is where the technology comes in now. What if we can harmonize and synchronize our brainwave activity to resemble a state of being that is an orderly functioning mind where there is more peace and harmony in our lives? What if our brainwave activity can reflect that state? Then what would happen? The body will start to respond accordingly. There'll be parasympathetic dominance, the body's systems start to coordinate, the body starts what it naturally does. It just naturally begins to heal and repair. You don't have to, if you get a cut, nobody has to dictate how that is going to heal. The body knows exactly what to do better than we do. And so it will just naturally heal, repair, replenish, regenerate, recover. It will do all that on its own if we can just bring that balance back. And that's the technology that I was introduced with last year. And when I started using it for myself, there's nothing short of amazing. For my life personally, but I started to use this as I worked with people, because when people go through trying to improve and transform their lives from the inside, one of the primary ways, and there's no greater habit to do it except than meditation. Meditation is perhaps the single greatest habit any human being could develop, because there's nothing that takes us in to harnessing our minds and rewriting the script and the programming that has been acculturated by the world that's not serving us. To remove that, there's no better way to do it than through meditation. But a lot of people tell me that they find that they struggle with it, the discipline, etc., to do that. But here's what we have found. If we can bring the mind into a more orderly and coherent function, all of a sudden people find it's not that difficult. It doesn't feel like it's an uphill or an upstream paddle anymore. It seems easier to access. And believe me, many of us are not familiar with what an orderly functioning brain actually feels like. This technology was developed by a gentleman who was a software engineer who was on a mission to try and discover a solution for his mother's neurodegenerative problem, multiple sclerosis, of which he was given X amount of time to live. And being very successful in his area of expertise, he searched the world to try and find the solution to save his mother, only to find out that there is no medical cure for the MS. And when he's in his research, when he inquired as to why the brain is not sending the signals to the muscles and the muscles are just wasting away, there was no real answer. But after 15 years of research and development and working with the great best of the minds, as a software engineer, he was able to find out how we can get the mind and the activity of the brain to resemble a mind that is in order, so that it can send signals to the body without all the interruptions that stress and emotional response will normally interfere with. Remove, it harmonizes the frequencies so it could happen. I'll explain to you in a second how that works, but this is why why I love this technology more than anything else that I've worked with in my clinical experience is because it's working with what exists in the body. It's working with the harmony. It's not overriding it like medication. Medication controls symptoms and manages conditions by bypassing and overriding what naturally exists in the body, which is why it creates side effects. That's the nature of side effects. This works with what already innately exists. This enhances and works with it and restores it so it can do its job. You could not get any better than that. This is the gentleman that developed it. His name is Jay Dhaliwal. And because of what he's developed, he was able to say, I'm here to build something generational that will transform the world. Now, a very bold statement, but it can indeed transform the world because it's tapping into a human potential that exists within the human being and it's helping us to harness what we already possess while we go through the work of trying to better ourselves. The result is it's able to tap into people who are struggling with different illnesses in a way that is completely drug-free. The technology has no medicine. It has no chemicals, no ingredients, no external frequencies. It has nothing in it. All it carries on it is just a tactile pattern working with the intelligence of the body, and you'll see how amazing how this works. I'm going to show you a 2-minute video where he's measuring brainwave activity to demonstrate the effects of his technology. It's called Vibro-Tactile Technology, and this is just a 2-minute video of how it works.
Hi everyone, I'm Jay Dhaliwal. I'm the CEO and founder of Vox Life and the creator of Vox Life HPT. Today, I want to talk to you about our Harmony Neuro Patch. And what this product does is actually stimulates receptors on our skin, sending a neurosignal to our brain to help it reach homeostasis. This is the only product in the world that relies on the neurohaptic system that every single one of us has to optimize our neurology and optimize our health. Today, with the help of Dr. Mark DeBrincat, our VP of Clinical Strategy, we're going to be using an FDA-cleared 19-channel EEG headset, as well as FDA-cleared software to visualize, record, and show the impact that our technology has on our neurology and our brains to help it reach optimal performance. What we want to show today is how the Harmony Neuro Patch helps that dysregulated yellow, blue, and red colors in the brain maps transform into that healthy green homeostasis neurology that is the foundation of health and wellness. So what we're looking at right now is a neurological QEEG output of Mike's limbic system. The 19 channels are reading over 60,000 brainwaves a second and generating an output of neurofunction and brainwaves. What we want to see now is where that suboptimal red and yellow colors are. We want to see them turning as much as possible to a healthy green with the application of our HPT patch. So we've applied the patch now to Mike's arm, and within 10 seconds, you're seeing that predominant yellow and red become predominantly green. Just for clarification, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing in the world that has this output at this rate of speed without drugs, without chemicals, without electricity. That's the power of Vox HPT. So when we see a healthy green neurology, what we're looking at is a brain and a mind in homeostasis. It is operating in its optimal function. And this is so important. And this is why it's so important. So Vox Life HPT, as we demonstrated with our Neuro Patch, helps the central nervous system reach homeostasis in our neurology. And the reason this is so important for overall wellness and health is that neurology is the top of the pyramid of our physiological health and wellness paradigm. First is neurology at the very top, then there's chemistry, then there's biology, then there's physics and mechanics. Neurology will have an impact all the way through our entire physiology. Healthy neurology, healthy body, better wellness. Just to show you.
That is, on the surface, people who are not in this space, that may seem like a very simple thing, but that is so profoundly powerful. To get our brain and the hemispheres and the different areas of our brain to start to coordinate and function in coherence, it would take a person who was perhaps spent decades living in a monastery meditating that have learned to harness their minds to be able to achieve something like that. If we were able to wear the Liberty patch and at the same time remove all negative frequencies of negative thoughts and emotions, conscious and subconscious, that will upregulate our systems in a very massive way. But we could wear the Liberty patch, it brings it into coherence. And here's the wonderful thing, when our brain becomes more coherent, not only does it enhance mind-body connection and enhance biological function, but it helps us now to be able to do that inner work, to be able to remove the negative frequencies of our lives, how we interact with life and interact with people. That it does not replace that. We have to still engage that, but it makes that process a whole lot easier. So just to understand that the reflection of the brainwave activity is really measuring our state of mind, and by extension, our state of being. That's what the brainwave activity is. And that's really, really important, because depending on the nature of the brainwaves, if it's on the negative scale of things, it will trigger the sympathetic dominance. If it is more on the positive side, parasympathetic dominance. And so how the central nervous system shift into to or against us, or for or against us, based on our state of mind or state of being, is what is really rubber meets the road. The technology is based on discoveries that were made that are Nobel Prize science. The first one basically says that every cell in our body, based on every atom within every cell, it receives and transmits electromagnetic radiation or vibrations. We live in a vibrational world. We are vibrational beings. Everything, all matter has vibrational outputs because all matter is made up of energy. This is all basic science. We know that. The other side of it is that in more recent times, 2 Nobel Prize laureates discovered what they call piezoelectric channels that's embedded in the skin that detects anything that touches the skin, sends a signal to the brain. That has been understood in neurology for the longest time. For many years, we did not understand until more recently how it is that whatever touches the skin is converted into neurological signals that goes to the brain, and the brain interprets it. They now understand what does it. It's these piezoelectric channels. And built on this science, Superpatch, this is what Superpatch is built on, without having to use any kind of medicines or ingredients. To understand it, if we understand a QR code. We don't really understand how this works. We just know that if we point a camera at a QR code, it converts that visual pattern that's on the QR code, it converts the patterns of that data into digital signals, and it unlocks the information. So a picture, a document, a website, or whatever information is embedded in this pattern, it opens it up. We may not understand, we just understand how it works. It's very similar with the Superpatch. The Superpatch, the piezoelectric channels on the skin, in essence, they scan the tactile pattern that's embedded on the patch, and it converts the stimuli into neurological signals, and that integrates with the brainwave activity that's always going on in the brain. What Superpatch has been able to discover is that certain patterns will send certain signals to certain parts of the brain and synchronize those areas so that it will be in balance and in order and in harmony. That's what they've discovered after 15 years of research and development. This has now become peer-reviewed and published science that's now being published in some of the best journals in the medical arena, the International Journal of Family Medicine and Healthcare, the National Journal of Research on Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation. This has now become established science, and so much so that last year, Superpatch was invited to present their groundbreaking technology to some of the world's biggest symposiums of medical professionals, where the World Congress of Pain, the European Sleep Society, the World Congress of Psychiatry. So I'm saying all that for us to understand that this is nothing to be concerned about in terms of, is this experimental, is this safe? It's very safe. And in fact, it's one of the safest things you can use because it has nothing that it puts into your body. It only works with what's already existing inside your body. And so Superpatch It unlocks that potential that already resides within, and it's clinically proven through double-blind studies to enhance how our mind and body works in harmony. And so when the mind and body is harmonized through synchronizing brainwave activity, the mind becomes more orderly in its function. That causes biological systems to become more coordinated, and it reestablishes homeostasis. And that is what optimizes biological function and brings the body into healing and repair. So, right now, the company has discovered 14 different patterns that correspond with 14 different neural networks in our brain that can help us to regain levels of physical and mental wellness that helps to enhance health, wellness, and performance. These are, and right now they have a few others that in research and development now that are absolutely mind-blowing in the area of regenerative medicine or regenerative healthcare. Things that medicine is just only dreaming of for somewhere in the future. This company is already in the process of researching and developing such technologies. This is this is so simple that it can almost go over our heads. So you're talking about mind-body solutions that the world is looking for. It enhances physical and mental well-being. It's non-invasive, it's completely safe, no contraindications. It doesn't matter what medication you're taking. It doesn't even matter if you have implants in your body. It's safe for children because there's zero ingredients. It is complete. It's the safest thing I've ever come across in all my years of clinical experience. But it's also the most non-invasive and the most effective I've come across. Almost immediate results because when you work with neurology, it starts working. As soon as you apply the patch to your skin, it starts to work instantly. Whether you feel the change or not depends on individual situations, and there are different parameters to that. But it begins, so some people see immediate results, some see it a little bit later. It all depends on your layer of imbalances. Bear in mind that this is harmonizing and coordinating various neural networks, bringing them into harmony so that the body functions better. But here's what enhances them even more. And I'll just throw this in is that when we begin to harness our minds and our emotions and do better with that, they work. It means that we're removing even more interference out of the way. They work even better that way. So just quickly to run through a few of them, or most of them, the Liberty Patch, which you saw demonstrated, it improves your balance and stability by more than 33%, and it does it in a matter of seconds. You can do a balance and stability test, a before and after, and within seconds, you'll see how fast and how quickly it improves that. This is anti-aging, this is longevity. This begins to start to enhance your biological aging from the inside. There is, if you want to look at living a longer, more healthier life, this is a patch that you would want to wear. The Defend patch, strong immunity, it supports a healthy immune system. It improves your body ability to heal and repair in terms of increasing and enhancing that overall well-being. For stress, if you want something to help to balance your autonomic nervous system, if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, you put this on, in a matter of moments, you start to feel centered, less stress, less anxiety, more calmness. Now, those three patches that I just mentioned, the peace, the Defend for your immune system, and the Liberty, those three patches together, when you wear them, they create such a coherence between mind and body and biological systems that they become the perfect combination for things like being proactive and being preventive and looking at longevity and reducing your risk of developing lifestyle and chronic diseases. They keep things in such harmony between brain and body that is, I say to people that is your foundation that you always want to wear every day of your life in order to know, because of the world that we live in today, it's very difficult. You're dealing with pain. Pain can make life very uncomfortable. The Freedom Patch, it works exceptional in dealing with your pain. If you're into sports, you're into athletics, you're into working out in the gym, and you want to see significant increase and enhancements in your athletic performance, your strength, your stability, your agility, your power, this is an exceptional. When I go into the gym to exercise, I really like to take this. It really makes a big difference. Forget the energy drinks, forget the toxic compounds that they have inside those things that damage your brains and your brain and your organs. This is energy on demand, clean internal energy created from your own power from within. You have issues sleeping. Let me tell you, this is the cornerstone of our health is good, restful, regenerative sleep. The REM patch really does that well. Focus, enhanced concentration. The joy patch, if you're your mood is down, your mood is low, you're feeling depressed, that will help us. You're struggling with addictions, not just even addictions with food cravings and substances, but addictions with the way we think. Some people are addicted to overthinking. Some people are addicted to negative or fearful thinking, always thinking the worst of things, and it's uncontrollable. It helps us even with things like that. You want to burn calories while you're sleeping to help to get off those extra pounds. The Ignite patch will do it. Healthier skin, better elasticity, enhanced collagen. For us men, as we get older, that masculine functions tend to decline. The Rocket patch tends to deal with that. And then, of course, when we combine patches in certain ways to get it, we get even greater coherence and we get greater efficacy in how it enhances our well-being. And so what I've just showed you is the fundamentals of truly living a healthy and effective life, and I've shown you a tool that works along with it. And I don't know of a better combination. I have not come across, by the way, the patches does not replace nutrition. You want to be looking at the healthy habits along your life, but in terms of functional capacity and enhancing and removing the hindrances that prevent our bodies from functioning well, you will not find that there's nothing in the world that works like these, nothing in the world that has this capacity as the super patches. They're very simple to use. You just peel it, you stick it on, you can put it anywhere on your body pretty much, and you can shower with them, you can go into the ocean or the pool with them. They're not affected by water. In the real world, in terms of real world application, the Super Patch Scientific Advisory Board works in that stead. They are all accomplished, world-renowned physicians, all have published papers, and they work with Super Patch for real-world application along with the research and development team. And so all that to just say that this is, in terms of integrity and compliance, we can be sure that we have a very good product. This is a new paradigm of health that requires a different mindset. This is a shift from treating the body like it's a machine that breaks down. You just got to try and fix it. That's not the body is not a machine. It's an extension of your spirit. It's a physical manifestation of what flows from inside out. And so the old mindset is if something feels wrong, I need to fix it. The new mindset is if something feels wrong, my body is sending me a message of misalignment, and I need to support that natural correction. While we may not quite know what that might be all the time, we do have a technology that helps to reinforce what already exists inside, supports that, and bring our bodies more into balance, and our body begins to heal itself. I don't know anything, period, on this planet that works like this. So we have to get past that feeling better means that I'm better. No, feeling better does not mean being better. But if we can work with what already exists within us and bring that into harmony and balance, we will not just feel better, we will also be better. So super patches, they don't override the body's innate healing potential like medicines and drugs do. They work with it. And so I want to introduce this to you for you to consider as something in your life that can help to enhance, that can form a bridge between not just your body and your mind functioning better, but a bridge to take us into a transformation where we can begin to harness, turning the boat around and flowing with the current rather than trying to live against the current of life. So you want to enhance yourself, get aligned. This is a good place to start. The way to work our way back to living by our true essence of being is first learning to harness control over the body. We have to gain dominance over our physical nature, not let our identity be ruled or governed by our physical nature. We need to let it be governed by our spiritual nature. And in turning that boat around, the first step is I need to gain governance over my physical well-being. I don't know a better way than this as we begin to engage the process. We have our Patch and Go Facebook page that has thousands of testimonies of how well these patches work and what they're doing for people all over the world. This is how we can begin to unlock our potential and begin our journey back from the inside out. Superpatch has a global business community that I would like to encourage you to consider. This is the reason why I'm asking you to consider this. It may not be for everybody, but it makes things affordable and accessible to you to begin your journey. A lot of people that I work with, a lot of people I communicate with, one of the biggest things that they're dealing with in their lives is debt and financial issues and financial struggles. I say to people, and I'm saying this to you tonight, living in debt and living in financial struggle is the external equivalent to living with a sickness or a disease. It's just the external equivalent of it. And because our social environment and our inner environment are mutually supportive, you need to get it right. And so with what this patch presents in terms of being part of the business community, it is something that is worth considering. Because I have to say to people all the time, you need to find a way to do one thing, spend less money or make more. And with this type of technology, this is a good opportunity to consider. And so with what Superpatch has built, their global economic model is as unique as the patch is unique. And I think it's worth looking into. They have made it easy for anyone to access this technology and begin to work with it. So I'm encouraging all of you to consider. If you wanted to try this technology, which you should, to get a pack of it, which is a 4-week supply, is $60 at retail and $45 at wholesale. How accessible is that to the average person? Now, you can become a lifetime member where you can have access to wholesale pricing for less than one pack, less than the cost of one pack at wholesale. Do you understand what I just said? Less than one pack at wholesale, you can become a lifetime member. What does that do for you? It gives you access to wholesale pricing. Now you can begin to use this technology as you begin to engage with a better quality of life. If you so choose to, you also have access, which is very optional. You can choose to participate in their globally scalable economic model, which has 10 streams of income, uncapped earning potential, and it's an opportunity to build your way into becoming debt-free and plan for a better financial future. Superpatch has a model of lifestyle, which I have integrated into my work of whole living, and I did it because it's a perfect fit, because it's harnessing mind-body connection and helping us to access our true essence of our spiritual nature. If this is something that resonates with you, I want to encourage you to consider looking at it, explore it, so you can be informed and make a decision, even if it's only to access it at wholesale pricing, which is reasonable for everybody to do. But we all need this. And people all over the world need what this has given us. Nobody wants the side effects of the drug therapies and the problems that's causing us. And so if you are interested, tomorrow evening, we get together and we have more of an interactive session. It's not as long as this evening will be, where we explain this model, talk a little bit about the company, the potential, and show you how this works and the options you have to how you can access it as being part of the business community, or if you just want to access it to just get the wholesale pricing. If you're interested in that, you can reach out to me. You can get the link for tomorrow evening. If you were invited on the call by one of our partners, you can reach out to them and you can get the link for that. But all in all, that is what I want to share with you this evening. I want to say thank you for each and every one of you for taking the time out to be here. What we got this evening, if you had to ask the question, so what is the secret to living a fulfilled life? What is the secret to thriving rather than surviving? What is the secret to living disease-free, effective, and really having the life that we desire? It is to love yourself. That is the essence of living by our true essence of being. Because our true spiritual nature is really love, the frequency of love. And it begins with loving ourselves. And what I showed you today, showed you what we talked about earlier, about this fractured way of living, how it's expressed externally and internally, which I'm sure we all can relate to. That all, when you break it down, it's a lack of love for self. Because when we love ourselves, when we truly do love ourselves, and I'm saying this because when I work with people and I ask them that question, do you love yourself? Everybody says yes. But yet our lifestyles and our actions don't necessarily reflect that. So we have to become deathly honest if we really want to live a really good life and really have the life that we so desire. We've got principles, fundamental truths this evening that can help us to do that, and a technology that can help us bridge our way into that life. And so thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share it with you, for taking the time and staying on and staying through with me on it. I really would try to keep it, closer to an hour, but I think the information was well worth it. So may God bless each and every one of you. Um, if you wanted to get a copy of anything that might have been said tonight of the recording, you may feel free to request a copy of that. And so with that, I'm going to say good night to everyone and thank you, and do have a wonderful week ahead of you. God bless you.